So you guys want to build an astrophotography rig? Let's get to it. Hey everyone, it's Steve with Entering Into Space, and welcome back to the Astro Patio. Yeah, I know it's been a while. Finally got me off the computer, outside, you know? So the goal is to build a completely separate OTA, meaning I can just take it off and put it on my mount and not have to rob Peter to pay Paul and pull cables and all kinds of stuff off of one scope just to get another scope working. Minus, obviously, the camera, because well, I can't afford two cameras. So in doing so, I had to buy some accessories like a new ZWO EAF electronic focuser. Oh, and of course, an ASIair Plus, right? I mean, I had the Pro, I need the Plus. And of course, here in Florida, in this tropical environment we have, I have to have dew heaters. Dew heaters. So I need cables. Well, the ASIair Plus has its own dedicated power source, meaning you can take one of the four power sources, the 12-volt power sources that it has, and turn it into a slider that controls your dew bands. You gotta have cables and zip ties and little Velcro thingies. You gotta do cable management. I see some of this stuff out there. You guys are just draping everywhere, man. I mean, come on, tighten up. So that being said, I'm pretty sure I have everything that I need so I don't have to completely pillage my 80mm wide angle, because I'm trying to set up my Newtonian rig for galaxy season. So the goal was to get my 8-inch skywatcher Quattro, meaning F4, going so that I could get some 800mm focal length images on some galaxies, you know, get it out, get it dusted off. And then I did a thing. I sold it and I bought a beast, the 10-inch Orion Astrograph at f3.9. So before I put it on the Skywatcher EQR6, I need to get some extra counterweight on this thing. It comes in at 33 pounds. That's naked. Holy crap, she's a beast. She's got some quirks, and by that I mean flaws. And by that I mean I almost returned it, but I'm gonna power through it, I swear. But one of the first things I have to do is take it off the dovetail that it came with and put it on an aftermarket purchased Apertura Lowe's Mandy bar, because this thing is flimsy. One of the other things I had to do, I noticed when I had it balanced on my other mount, it was making this knocking sound, almost as if the mirror was flopping back and forth. But really what was happening was the rings weren't tight enough, and the whole OTA was moving in the rings, and it actually almost slipped out. Well, it would have hit the focuser, but it still scared me. So what I had to do is take this carpet padding stuff here, I have black, luckily, and put it in between the rings, but I had to do both the top and the bottom on both rings. All right, so first things first, I've got to get the OTA off the rings, set to the side, then I've got to get the rings off of this flimsy little dovetail onto the Lowe's Mandy bar, and then I think I'm going to put the dovetail on top. The goal today is to really keep the weight down. So let's see how we do. Don't drop it. I swear, would you look at the dog hair? I give up. All right, we're going to dismount the rings from this dovetail. Just leave it in the, leave it on the mount. Make it easier if we close them. Last Torx head screw to come off. About that elbow shot right there. That's a good one, huh? Cool, ring gone. Yeah, this dovetail bar, I cannot believe Orion would do this and send something out so big on something so small. Let's get the dovetail bar unmounted and put on the Lowe's Mandy. See where this thing lines up. But I'm gonna have to use this as a spacer. Yeah, because I want to put this on top. Cool. Now the Apertura Lowe's Mandy bar did come with some screws. I've lost them. Screws. All right, so what I think I want to do is actually line up both of my rings facing this way with the screws on the same side. I think I want to go ahead and mount this Lowe's Mandy bar, or excuse me, the dovetail bar on top to set the spacing. And that may be a trick, because I don't think the screws I have are long enough. And yeah, they do go through. Cool. This one is like really tight. All right, so we got them fairly snug. And now I want to get over here and mount them onto the Lowe's Mandy, which I'm a little concerned with because these screws are pretty small. They may have to come up from the bottom. Let's see. So the Lowe's Mandy bar has tons of threaded screw holes. It's got through holes that aren't threaded, and it's got these slots. And I'm hoping that these little screws here will poke through. If not, it's to the junk drawer we go. So look at that. All right, let's see how it all lines up. Tight, 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 tight. You gotta get it. Sometimes you gotta get it too tight. It's gonna work. Let's turn it. Let's maybe get the front one first. What do you think? Get another elbow shot. And of course, wouldn't you know it, those Mandy bar screws are coarse thread. And these will not fit in these holes. Life of an astrophotographer. Always trying to figure it out. You gotta be part mechanic. So let's see what we can do. Instead of drilling and tapping those threads out, I had to find a fine thread screw to actually go into the Orion ring. But unfortunately, it's a Phillips head. Ugh. But we're gonna have to make it work. All right, inserting Phillips head through the slotted hole. And wouldn't you know it, the slots don't line up. All right, so what I'm gonna have to do is mount this top ring, and then I'm gonna have to undo the Lowe's Mandy bar from the top, slide it to the slot up here so it'll line up with the slots down below. Okay, here we go. Okay, now we got it back in the slot instead of that end hole. So it is gonna push our rings in a little closer. I think we're still gonna be okay. Let's just wait before we tighten that down. Let's get our other Phillips head screw. One from the bottom. Ha, I got it, kinda. Yeah, what do you think about this, huh? This is what we do. We invent stuff half the time. Okay. So my front screw is a little long. I gotta get a washer and bring it down just a little bit because it's poking into the OTA. Stand by. Washer. Gotta go find one. You might be a redneck if you use more than one washer on any given screw. All right, so once we get everything kind of snug, we're not gonna completely tighten everything down because we wanna get the scope back in and let the scope kind of center everything up. Let's tighten it up. Okay, so let's get our little non-slippage pads back in and put the OTA back in to the rings and go to the next step. Finally, oh my gosh. I'm also going to make the conscious decision to make sure that the focuser is down. That's the best balance point. Like an idiot, I left those little pads laying on the floor and I can't reach them, and I don't have a lovely assistant because my lovely assistant is in the house. Okay, don't go anywhere. All right, I got my little doodad pads here because you gotta have them, man. Yeah, we'll edit that out later. Thank you very much, Orion. Your rings are too loose. The other kind of crappy thing about this is I'm assuming I have this balanced, but I won't know until I get everything on. So more than likely, see, do this again. So as you can tell, this is a real pain in the ass having to do this. It'd be a lot easier if I did it on the flat table and then move this whole thing over. But I don't like to do things the easy way. We're really backing these screws off to get this down because we've got so much padding in here, but you gotta have it. And I'm kind of thinking, all said and done, good astrophotography balance, I'm gonna have to slide this back. But right now I just want to get everything together. Then I can make my final adjustments. Well, you aren't watching me, God. Okay, our rings are looking good. Got a nice little handle to grab everything. So let's tighten up the screws on the Losmandy bar and then we'll be on to step, I don't know, 3. Okay, so the next step is let's get the electronic focuser put on, which means we got to pull the knob off of this focuser, not the fine-tune knob, but the other coarse adjustment knob, and then we'll mount the electronic focuser. Okay, so most everything these days is metric. Let's doing the locking knob on the back side. We can get this lined up and then find the appropriate Allen wrench to get this knob off. And I believe it is a 2mm. That was correct. I'm just gonna undo, we wanna remove this knob. The other thing that we have to fight with is the tension knob because we have to have it. So hopefully the bracket will go on. If not, I have to come up with a different kind of a screw mechanism to replace this tensioner because we have to have the tensioner to work the rack and pinion. Only one screw, cool. All right, so let's tear open the EAF. And with that, you get a manual in Chinese. You get another cord for your box of cords. You get the focuser, some Allen wrenches for your stack of Allen wrenches. Get your mounting bracket. Get a ton of screws and washers to put in your junk drawer. Excuse me, your Astro junk drawer. And then you get your cam bushings. You get an assortment of bushings that will go from the EAF to the different types of telescope focusers out there. And so first step is probably choosing the right cam bushing. And that's just like trial and error. And oh, just so you know, if you're seeing these in the box, you see how you can see the different size holes. Well, all the holes on the bottom line up with the EAF. The different size holes are for what shaft is for your focuser. Okay, so mine was the second one over. This size fits on the scope focuser. This size fits on the EAF. So now I want to get that mounted on and just get it snug with my 2mm Allen wrench. Spin it around. And this is critical too. You definitely want to make sure you get this tight because I have had lots of issues in the middle of the night where I'm not focusing, and it's because these weren't tight enough. Pretty tight. You can go ahead and tighten that one down. There's no reason to like wait for this because you've got this little flexible coupling. All right, so the next thing we have to do is pull the tensioner knob, and you can see now the focuser is going to drop. This is a 3-inch focuser, by the way, for the Orion 10-inch. This will either have to go back or I'll have to find something to replace this to apply tension to this rack and pinion bushing. Now I want to go ahead and mount the EAF, and that's going to just kind of dangle there, and then I can do the bracket. That all will have to be loose, the bracketry. Once I get everything mounted and I get the tension back in, then I can tighten everything up. So again, I have to back these screws off a little bit. I want to roll this around where I can see both of the screws. Oh, before I do that, one really cool feature about the new one is you don't need dedicated power. You just need the USB port. You don't need the dedicated power anymore. Saves you one more cord. All right, so let's get this one mounted or tightened. Again, you can go ahead and tighten these up. Cool. So our bracket is gonna fit here, And now we've got to probably pull 2 of these screws. I don't like to pull all 4 of them, just 2, and usually counterwise. And then we have to figure out the tension knob. So these are 2.5 millimeters. Let's just pull the 2 cross ones. We'll see if we can get these screws back in, which it doesn't feel like that's gonna happen. Maybe, and hold this bracket at the same time. Yeah, and you can see how high that sets off there. We may have to go get some different screws, but I have a plan for that because I bought a crap load of metric screws. So probably gonna have to go dive in the junk drawer. Drunk. I should be drunk for this. Okay, so in fact, I did have to get new screws. These are M3 by 16 thread. So they'll have to thread back in here. They're just a little bit longer to receive that bracket. So let's put them in the appropriate holes. And our Phillips screwdriver to tighten them down. We don't want to tighten them all the way because we still have to kind of adjust everything, but we've got pretty good, yeah, let's loosen it up just a little bit because it's gonna pitch a little bit. So this focuser's got some rounded edges, so what we wanna do is we wanna slide it over as much as we can and get the bolts into the focuser. And of course the spacing on those bolts, oh my God, wouldn't let it come over to meet, wouldn't let the bracket come over to meet the electronic focuser because I can't get it any closer. So I'm having to put this screw back in and I'm only gonna be able to use these front 2. Yeah, with them lined up like so, that was about as far as it would come. You probably saw that just a minute ago too. So now I gotta get it all the way over, which means I'm gonna have to use these 2. Which is gonna be interesting when we put our tension screw. It's the kind of stuff that you have to do in this hobby because very little of it is plug and play. So let's just tighten these up or snug them up. And then let's get our focuser mounted. I want that to be loose. All right, so EAF screws, we've got to find the 2 that are going to go from the bracket to the focuser itself. So I believe it's these bigger ones. I want you to know the dedication that I have right now for you guys because I'm doing this. I'm trying to keep my big fat head out of the way. EAF is mounted to the bracket. The bracket is somewhat mounted to the focuser. So let's tighten up these bolts and then let's see about applying tension back to our focuser. All right, and let's tighten up these screws to the focuser. I think we're super close to having this done. We're not really gonna know if we have to make any adjustments until we get some power to it. Now, the moment of truth. Tension knob doesn't fit. So now I have to get another screw to go in there and apply some tension. So we don't have this. Okay. I'm not really sure I could give you much advice on this other than in my junk drawer, I found a tensioning knob from something else and it fits in perfect. And if you can see, it is much longer. Yeah, focus. Anyway, it's much longer. We have a loose focuser, still got plenty of room. Now my focuser is locked in place. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than it is smart, I think. Okay, so focuser's mounted, bracket is kind of mounted. I've only got it on 2 screws. The tension knob, got really lucky. And then we did tighten, we went ahead and pre-tightened. So there is room. If it rolls around here and you can't, then you just want to spin it around till you can see these screws to get the collar tightened. Step, I don't know, I can't, who's keeping track? Anybody keeping track out there? Step 4 complete. Okay, so the next step is I do have to take the camera off. So let's get it off of the 80mm mead. And like I said earlier, hopefully I can leave all these cables on, and then when I want to set this back up, I just have to plug it in. I don't have to pull cables. It's so aggravating. And oh, by the way, just so you know, yes, I do thread stack, or I do filter stack. That is the Optilong L Pro. But I got to get all this off. Cool. I did lie about something else. I am going to pull the 290, ASIair 290 for guide camera. I'm going to replace it with the 120 that I have, and I'm going to move the 290 over to the bigger scope for the off-axis guider. Okay, so one of the things I have to do now is I've got to set this camera up, which means I've got to get the off-axis guider mounted loosely, and then I've got to get the coma corrector mounted as well. And I am using the dedicated skywatcher coma corrector for f4 and f5 telescopes. And I've got the ASIair OAG, and I've used this before. I used it with my Ritchie Christian 8-inch. Works pretty good, but takes some finagling. If memory serves me right, I do have to have some space between the filter wheel and the OAG. When I had it right against the OAG, it didn't work. So I've got the 11mm ring that comes with most ZWO cameras. I think that goes on first, then the OAG, and then the coma corrector. So we're gonna screw the 11mm ring on. And the pick-off prism, you can see, can you see it in there? It's got a face. Wait, faces that way. That's the way it faces. And so these little threads right here, they will thread into the 11mm extension ring for the camera, and then these little ears, they'll mount onto the off-axis guider, like so. So just kind of slide that in, and then it gives you some radial adjustment. So it's going to be a lot of setup time out there adjusting stuff to get everything just right. And the other key is you want to get your off-axis guider pretty much square with the sensor. So the sensor on the camera right now, you can see my camera is, well, it doesn't really matter about the filter wheel, but you can see the 1600. Yeah, can you see the 1600? So the sensor is rectangular to it. So the 1600 would be long ways. So I want my off-axis guider to sit here. I don't want it off in the corner. I want it sitting on the long side of this sensor. If you got a square sensor like a 533, kudos. Okay, so now that we got that on, screw that one on. Okay, and here's where I think I had some rings in here, because what I'm having to do is micro adjust where that locks in. You always want it to lock in place, but I have to make sure it's here or here. So pushing ring on there. So there it is there. Made a little bit of an adjustment. OAG. And as you can see, what's happened is I am pretty close. Let's look at it this way. So here's my sensor sitting here like this. This OAG needs to be probably rotated some. Okay, so not sure if you can see it, but remember, sensor is lined up with the 1600. I did have a small spacer ring between the camera and the electronic filter wheel. I had to pull that out, which meant the camera threaded into a different location. And I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty dang close. I think that I'm close enough. But I won't be able to really determine that until I get some stars. Okay, and to that, we're gonna thread on the dedicated coma corrector. And I have noticed pretty good results with having this L Pro kind of at the start of everything, even with narrowband. So I'm gonna take it off of the reducer that I had and thread it on to the coma corrector. Cool, so let's get it onto the scope. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is undo the tension ring. Let's get our camera, the whole camera gear here with the off-axis guider. Insert like so. Wow, that's really tight. It's like super tight. So it's a rack. I'll tell you the other thing that I'm definitely gonna need is more counterweight. I'm gonna have to rob counterweight from my Orion Atlas. Let's loosen it up. We're gonna adjust it back around like that. The goal is to get as much weight as you can as close to this center point. I'm sure you can't see, let's see, the mass of your mount. I've got an off-axis guider, the camera, the EAF. All of this balancing is gonna have to be adjusted once I get everything put together and see where it all shakes out. Right now, let's go ahead and get the 290 off the Orion and over to the telescope. So ASI 290, hell of a camera. Again, with this camera, rotation is critical to try to get a star alignment. So I'm not gonna worry about that right now. I'll have to do all that at night. I just wanna get it mounted and then get a cable running to it. I think that concludes putting the camera on. It looks cool, doesn't it? Yeah. The next step is getting the ASIair Plus and deciding how we wanna mount that. Do we wanna put it on the rig or do we wanna put it on the mount? So let's think about it. Something I'm gonna do before I go any further is to get some more weight. I'm gonna add one of my counterweights from the Orion Atlas. Wow, even with 3 weights, it's still heavy. It's getting there. Okay. Feel better. The first thing, I guess we gotta unbox it, right? Let's unbox it. So this apparently has a greater Wi-Fi range, but my neighbor, who's extremely tech savvy, came over and hooked me up with a dedicated landline out to my telescope. Yeah, I'm totally wired up. I still control it with my phone. Once I log on to my Wi-Fi here in the house, I'm connected to the ASIair. So, slide out. Some little how-to guides. The actual unit itself, it's not bad. I don't think it's gonna add a ton of weight to it. More cables! The antenna? Make astrophotography easy and fun. You know what? It does. Thanks again, Mr. Poole, for getting me going on this route. And then look, more cables. Great. Okay, and now we have an empty box. All right, so what I'd really like to do is mount it up here maybe. I don't know. I gotta decide that, but it is gonna add some extra weight. Currently what I have is a power cable. It's kind of a dedicated wrapped up power cable. So I've got communications, I've got power to the ASIair. I've got this little flexible hook for hooking things so you're not hooking onto the cables, and then this feeds power down to the mount. So let me give this some thought and then I'll get right back with you. Okay, so believe it or not, you know, all these scopes come with a bracket here for like a spotting scope. And of course the ASIair has a bracket that comes with it that is supposed to mount right in that. And I was kind of concerned about putting all my weight up front. But guess what? It is still back end heavy. That mirror just trumps. It really does. It trumps everything. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Ask anybody. It really trumps. That's my best trump. It really trumps the weight here because it's still trying to fall. I guess it's that fan and stuff too, which I'm not sure I'm going to use. This thing does have a fan. So I'm happy because now I can just mount this. Oh yeah, let's not forget our antenna. So you can't, actually have to mount it first. I do have to use the internal Wi-Fi for the ASIair Pro. Only because, oh, it does rotate. Jesus, I'm losing it. Yeah, only because when I bring it in here, I'm not connected to my landline. So if I'm shooting flats here on the patio, I have to use the Wi-Fi from this. All right, so what's next? We gotta get all the cables run. I gotta figure out my main cables coming off the mount, how to reroute them because everything's focused on the front now. Pretty much all the rest of the cabling is right here, which is kind of cool. So I took a little pause and I did just a little bit of research on the ASIair Plus, and even though this isn't a video about the Plus, just so you know that it does have an internal storage system now. So I think that replaces that little SD card that you had to back up. And it also is meant to replace the little USB plug that I use. I pull it out, I take it in and put it in the computer. I think they want you to take the whole thing off because it does have a little port to actually plug it in, like a Type-C port to plug it directly into your computer. I'm not doing that. So I guess I'll continue to use this. So it doesn't come in one of these, so don't look for it. Nothing stays the same. Okay, so I'm gonna have to take off this contraption here and figure out how to reroute my main power cables coming from the mount. Got to reach around here and I've got to have enough flex to kind of test things out. So what I'll do is I'll probably just plug in my landline and then rotate the scope around to see what's going on. So I'm just going to unlock the scope in both axes. You know, these are typical scope conditions. See what this main data cable is doing. Think it's going to be okay? Yeah, that's going to be the trick. Is this rotation and this axis here. So you can see this is crucial when you're testing out your scope, making sure. All right, so let's get to actually putting cables from the ASIair to the camera. All right, so this little hook thing that I have here is pretty crucial. So it actually hooks the cables to here. I may have to try to fish this one out to get a little more of my internet cable. But I can go ahead and power on for the ASIair, and then let's rotate it around here some so we kind of see. Yeah, so I can just do power 4. And the birds are noisy today, So let's run power from the ASIair. Let's see what kind of power cords we have over here, because we need to power our camera. And we don't have to power our focuser, so we just need one power cord down to the camera. And this thing's gonna be pretty slim. So we're gonna go power 3 around to our camera. We need data from the ASIair to the camera, and that would be this cable, but it's pretty dang long. And we also need information or data from our focuser, or excuse me, our filter wheel, down to the camera. I like to wrap this in some fashion back around, maybe through here, just to kind of clean that up. And then we need data to go from our camera around to our FX guider and our guide scope. And for that, I did buy a cable yesterday. So this is a USB to Type-C. So I like to run all of my cables and then try to figure out how to neaten them up, because you see this thing is way too long. In the camera, yeah, I gotta tighten that up. And then out of the main camera. So we're definitely gonna have to clean that up. Man, I got a mess here, people. Don't look, don't look. So we still need our data cable. So this is gonna go from the the ASIair Pro down to the camera. Let's look over here in the Astro doodad. Probably not. So let's see. So this is gonna be our, this guy's kind of in the way. That's how we talk to the camera. And I always like to use the 3.0 port. And I'm gonna do 3.0 port for downloading my files. And I'm assuming I can make that switch. So now I need to go data from the ASIair to the focuser. Trying not to rob from this guy. Trying to leave you alone. So USB 2.0, good Lord. See, I see a lot of you guys, like, you're like, done. Yeah, can't do that. Okay, so we got data from the ASIair to the focuser. We have it from the ASIair to the camera. We've got power to the camera. We've got power to our mount. We're gonna have to lengthen this because it has to plug in here. Yeah, so now we gotta wrap everything up. I hate to tell you this, but I made a change. I rotated the ASIair so I could get my internet cable in shorter. And the other thing is on this side over here is just those like accessory ports for downloading data. I don't really need those right there. So I got power more accessible now. My main power cable coming into the ASIair, which the ASIair Plus or the Pro, none of these come with. It's kind of dumb. But anyway, main power, aftermarket power, 12 volt coming in. I've got power on the number 2 spot down to the camera. When I'm done for a session, I want to leave my mount out here. Or excuse me, yeah, because I image on the patio. Leave the mount out there. I just want to come over here. I want to unplug main power. I want to unplug internet and unplug this power one that goes down to the mount itself. And then I just unhook and everything's free. And the only reason I have this is because I don't like pulling on power connections. You know, all the force is going to be loaded into this little doodad here. And for right now, that's where I'm going to hook it. There's one cable that I did forget. I have to go 2.0 data down to the mount. This is the cable that we're gonna need. Let's come over here, let's rotate the scope, see it just a little better. And we're gonna go 2.0 data out, USB, and this is gonna go down to the mount. So this would go into the mount. Now this cable will have to, it's gonna have to maybe feed into this sleeve. I think I'm gonna use this to kind of clean up some of these cables here. And then I have to sleeve the cable from the ASIair down to the mount. So one of these little things that I like to buy over here, these little cord clips, get them from Lowe's, Home Depot. You know, again, you're not tugging just in case you're not tugging. So I would do a scenario like this, where this clips in, peel it off, onto the side of the scope. And now I'm just kind of pinning that cord back away from everything. All right, so we're gonna deal with this guy in a little bit here. He's kind of in the way. Let's pull him. We're gonna fish him up into this sleeve. Right now we've got all these cables right here. We need to wrap up to start working it in. And then, like I said, I can loop them back through the sleeve. If they get too long, which they will, because I've got a bunch. But like I said, the neat thing about this is I can push them back through the sleeve. It just kind of tightens everything up. It doesn't do this, see? It doesn't do that. Hooks on your counterweights. Now I can grab this, kind of fold it back, and just start working them back through. I'm not really even gonna worry about this one, it's so short. So feed it back to that point. Now see, this one's starting to get kind of tight, and I want it to be kind of like right there. And then what I'll do is I'll find a way to Velcro this thing fast. So that's where these guys come in. Really handy, this Velcro strip stuff. Yeah, so we still have a bunch right here. I don't think I can get any more in. Let's see if I can get just this little loop in here. Definitely don't want anything snagging. Man, this thing's tight. So let's cinch that off. It just kind of holds everything in place. And then we probably want to have some way to, yeah, something, you know, something like this. Let's get creative, you know? All right, so, oh yeah, look at that. What do you think? Yeah. And then this, stick it right there. Might have got that a little too tight, but that's all right. Like I said, this is gonna fish up through to go to the ASIair, and that controls the mount. So we could fish it, or we could just zip it on there. So these guys are awesome. So this will have to zip on like this, and then we'll just run a series of them. And since we have so much, we can just kind of bunch it at the top. Ta-la, voila. And do another one. Okay, so I'll put a couple more. I won't bore you with that. So I'm done. I'm ready to pull the OTA. I'm gonna pull the power to the mount, pull the main power, unhook it, pull the data, and then I have to pull this data cable down to the mount. That tank comes off. I can just hook that, look at my little extra hook I have here. And then I take the OTA off, voila, something like that. So I think there's a little bit more cleanup I'll do, like some of these wires. I'll probably rewrap a little bit more, but you get the gist. So I might do a little more cleanup on it. I'll give you one last little overview with some cool music at the end of the video. Definitely will do that for you. All right, so I think I'm complete with everything that I wanted to show you today, which is, you know, I went from this thing being on the wrong kind of dovetail to completely bracketing it onto a stronger dovetail, hooking up the focuser, hooking the camera up to it, and then running all the cables. I did go through, kind of tighten everything up. I put some more of these straps on here. I'm pretty pleased with it. I've rotated the scope quite a bit, and that's the next thing you want to do when you get through running all your cables and doing all your cable management, is just kind of take it through the normal paces of where you would typically slew to. I'm not sure if you can see, but right down here, I did actually grab this cable and just kind of pin it up on the handle. It's balanced well, which is surprising because I really thought I was going to have some serious balance issues. It does want to kind of have a little drift, which that's just tweaking. Really the next step would be to get some power to it, fire up the ASIair, let it go through its startup firmware process and get everything going. And not going to get any imaging tonight because it's cloudy. Looking forward to following up with like a first light of the scope. This video really wasn't about any one thing. It was about connecting everything together. And I didn't screw up the old 80mm too bad. I got a few little things to tweak on it. And if you guys feel sorry for me and think, hey man, this guy's only got one camera, send me one. It'd be great. No, seriously, send me one. And oh yeah, momentous occasion. Hit 5,000 subscribers, so that's pretty awesome. I can't believe it. Again, thank you very much for all the messages that I get. I'm telling you, like, wonderful messages that I get about how much my processing tutorials help you out, and I don't know how much the backyard stuff helps out, but I do enjoy actually processing everything, and I really appreciate the support that I've gotten from that too. So, as always, big scope, clear skies, and clear minds. See ya.
Yeah.